To the Garden Report. We're back less than 12 hours later. It's going to be a busy week, and big reason why is the NBA draft on Thursday. Jeff Goodman is here from the Goodman and Ryan podcast. We're going to kick around some prospects. We're going to kick around some of the big stories going on this week, and it feels like, Jeff, this could be a week of big movement in this draft. You hearing number 2 could be up for grabs from Charlotte. Number 3, Portland's trying to put a supporting cast around Damian Lillard to try to keep him enticed. And then, of course, there are some big, historic, all-time prospects at the top. Victor Wembanyama and a guy, I guess we'll start with Scoot Henderson, who...
Can we start with this, Bobby? Can I have a moment of silence for not getting Bradley Beal to Boston? Can we have a quick moment of silence?
Right.
It ruined my Father's Day weekend. It ruined it because of how little Washington got back for Brad Beal. Like, that's my biggest problem right now. I know the Celtics didn't have what fit Michael Winger in Washington, right? Expiring contracts. They're going to flip Chris Paul. But, like, they didn't get anything. They got jack shit. Like, you're telling me Brad couldn't have put together something here?
So I was just going to say, Brogdon, Gallinari, Muscala, and a first?
Something. Give him 2 firsts. I don't care. They're going to be late first. Give them next year's and the year after's, and give them pick 35 this year. I don't care. If you somehow added Brad Beal for this year and didn't have to give up Jalen Brown, like, you're telling me they're not the clear favorites?
With Smart, White, Al, Rob still intact, it's hard not to argue in that. Now, what everyone's going to wonder is how Beal's going to look as a third option on a team.
Well, he'd be a second option.
You think, behind Durant and Booker?
I was saying in Boston behind Tatum.
Oh.
Here we go. Tatum, Beal, Brown, to me. Because Beal can dribble and he can pass. Especially.
Right. On the second unit, too, he would have helped out a ton where Brown's tried to lead that unit. I'm intrigued by it. It's such a short-term move to me because of the money. 3 guys making $50 million. You're losing pretty much everybody within 2 years at that point. But does it almost guarantee you a championship in that time?
Doesn't guarantee you, but you know what? You're playing in small windows now. I think that's what everybody has to realize now. You're not playing in these, like, now with Beal, it's a little different because of the no trade clause, right? Like that's what scared off a lot of teams is, if Beal is injury prone over the next couple of years, you're stuck with him for the most part. But I don't know. I feel like, again, Matt Ishbia, the owner there, putting all his chips in and saying, you know what? I got 3 of the top 25 players in the game. I'll figure the other stuff out. DeAndre Ayton, we don't know if he'll still be there or not. They might have to move him money-wise. They'll fill in the other gaps, and they just got to find, like, good defensive-minded wing, who can really guard to put with that unit. Because, frankly, it doesn't matter who you have out there, Bobby. They're not going to be guarded on the perimeter. Like, they're going to be shooting uncontested threes every single game if you're putting them out there with Booker, KD, and Brad Beal.
Why don't you think the Celtics looked into this? Obviously, you got the Tatum connection. You're looking to move Brogdon anyway, it seems like, according to all the reports. You consolidate the roster a little bit. Was it just a money thing, you think?
Yeah, I think it was a part of that, obviously, that you're hamstrung a year from now. You got to really figure things out a year from now. And the other part was, again, Washington probably didn't want Marcus Smart. They didn't feel like they could flip him quickly. They didn't want 3 years of $60 million.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to start from pretty much scratch. Now, again, if I was Michael Winger, I would have wanted better draft picks at least. Like, Landry Shamet, whatever. Like, he's a piece. Like, probably a good second unit guy. The Celtics could have given him something to the equivalent of that. I just can't understand how Washington didn't get more draft equity out of this. That's the one that I just can't fathom. Like, you're going to trade Brad Beal for nothing. I mean, legitimately, you got nothing for Brad Beal. You just got him off the books. That's basically what that trade was. Get as much salary off the books, and we're going to start over. And starting over in Washington is tough because you're not getting free agents. So you're going to have to build through the draft.
Yeah, Washington's screwed here. And I hear the next 2 drafts aren't very good. They decided to tank after the draft that was worth tanking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's why the Wizards have been the Wizards for as long as they have.
They'll screw up the 8th pick too, probably this year. They'll probably
Yeah.
screw that up. And I know you want to get to the draft, and so do I, but I had to get that off my chest on Brad Beal.
I
Just
was stunned. I thought he was going to be in Miami because they had picks, they had Hero, they had
or Milwaukee.
Robinson.
I thought Milwaukee might make sense. That
Yeah.
I think he wanted Miami or Milwaukee ultimately. Boston, I think he would have liked too. But how do you turn down Phoenix? I mean, how do you turn down playing Brad Beal? If you look at who he's played with over the course of his career, it's a joke. I mean, seriously, I don't know if anybody's played with a worse group of players over a decade than Brad Beal did. He played with two really good players that both couldn't shoot the ball, and John Wall and Russell Westbrook, and then like Rui Hachimura, like Kuzma. I mean, Porzingis last year. Like, he's had a bad group around him. So now he becomes the third guy. Like, the third guy. Now, again, can they guard? I mean, KD can guard. We know when he wants to. Brad Beal can guard when he wants to. I think Booker's challenged a little bit defensively, but Phoenix is going to be fun. That's for damn sure.
Do they stick with Ayton? Are they going to try to split him up with some other guys?
I think they'll try to move him. I think they'll try to move him because of the money too.
Yeah.
But honestly, all they need there is a Clint Capella type. Like, legitimately, what do they need? They just need a guy who can run, jump. Like if I'm Phoenix, like, go get a Derek Lively type. Again, he's going to go higher. I don't even know if Phoenix, do they have a first round
No,
pick?
they gave up theirs for KD.
Right, so they don't even have one. But that's what they need, like a Walker Kessler type, a big who can just defend and finish around the rim, plays hard, rebounds. That's all they need. They don't need anything. They're not going to throw the ball into him anyway. So, they can move Ayton and maybe get for Ayton, a wing defender or something like that. Somebody that can really guard.
Speaking of Walker Kessler, I do remember a year ago, Jeff, I was like, is this guy, is he for real? Like, he was blocking 7 shots a lot of nights in college. And then he was amazing.
He surprised me. He surprised me, to be honest. I didn't see that coming. I mean, he was so good in college. But again, those plotting bigs, which is kind of what he is, I mean, certainly not athletic.
Yeah.
They don't tend to work right now in the NBA, although, obviously the world champion big man would probably argue on that one, but he brings so much to the table. I mean, Jokic is just ridiculous. Yeah, plotting big. I mean, he doesn't move great, but he moves. He finds a way, right?
Yeah.
Like, there aren't guys like him. So I think, ultimately you're looking at, the guys coming out right now, and that's a big difference. What you see now coming out of college, for those who don't follow the college game closely, so many of these plotting bigs just go back now. They're not coming out. They're going to go back because they're making more money through name, image, likeness.
Right.
So, Hunter Dickinson would have been a first rounder 10 years ago. And now he transfers instead, goes into the portal and makes a shit ton more money at a place like Kansas.
Kofi Coburn a couple years ago.
He came out. He made no money. Like, he should have stayed at Illinois another year. Instead, I think he was in like China or Japan this past year and didn't even make that much money overseas. Yeah. He should have come back. Oscar Tshiebwe finally said, I'm done at Kentucky. And again, think about it. Like, Adama Sanogo was the best big on the best team in the country at UConn. Maybe he'll be drafted, maybe late second round, but he probably should have gone back to school and made more money. And there was some thought of that. There was some thought that he was going to transfer from UConn because he's got a big kid behind him, Donovan Clingan, who's going to play. UConn didn't want to pay both big NIL. So in order to keep Clingan, they sort of forced Sanogo out and was praying that he would go to the league instead of put his name in the portal. Because how does that look?
Yeah.
Imagine if the MVP basically of the Final Four puts his name in the portal after winning the national title, but he decided to go pro. And again, Sanogo, probably be a second round pick.
Right. Edey. That's a The
Yep.
guy I see at
Yeah.
like 60 overall.
Yep. Yeah, he's smart. He's going to make more money coming back. And to be honest, bank all that money if you're big in college because you may never get it again. Zach Edey may never make $1 million again. Like my guess is he makes somewhere in that range this year at Purdue, and he may never see that money again. So take advantage of it and bank all that money, and you're going to be in the same spot you're in next year. This year, like you're not going to be that much quicker. Maybe you can step out and make, like Hunter Dickinson's able to make some threes now. That's the difference with him, but he's still not a rim protector, not a great athlete. So ultimately, the NBA wants Derek Lively types. That's what they want. We'll talk about him. I love him. I think, honestly, there's a bunch of guys in this draft, Bobby, that were highly recruited and heralded prospects coming out of high school that their stock really fell this past year in college for one reason or another. And Derek Lively, the Duke freshman 7-footer, is one of those.
Yeah, I see him like late lottery. What's he bringing to the table for a team that gets him? There's obviously some teams that are right on the edge around that area, like in Indiana, could probably use some size. Washington could start with a guy like him if they want to. There's some teams in that range that are close.
Yeah. I'm a big fan, partially because I saw a lot of these kids in AAU ball. So I saw something they can do that maybe they didn't show in college. And Lively's the prime example of that, right? Like at Duke, I don't know if he ever took a three. He wasn't a weapon offensively at all. He was terrific defensively. Again, long, athletic, can run the court as well as a guard, blocks, alters shots. He's thin, but he could put on some weight, and what I saw from him was the ability to shoot the three. Not at a great clip, but good enough. Probably 33% right now, something like that. But he never got that opportunity at Duke. So I think when he goes around and works out for some of these teams, and again, a lot of these workouts are a joke, right? I mean, I remember seeing Sabonis, Domas work out for the Celtics, and he was at Gonzaga. He never shot a three, and he made like 65 of 100 in Boston, and I came off the court, and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? And he looked at me. He's like, no, I didn't even shoot well. Like, that was poor. Like I didn't even shoot it well, but few would never let me shoot the three. And that's kind of how Lively was at Duke. I don't know if he's going to shoot, 40% from three, but he can keep you honest. He can keep you. I mean, listen, nobody thought Al Horford would ever be a 3-point shooter, ever. And I don't know what he shoot. The number better than I do this past
45 year. This year.
I mean, that's insane. That to me is a product of really hard work, obviously, which Al does. We know that. And also the benefit of, like, listen, a lot of people, they're uncontested. Most of those are uncontested threes.
Pretty much all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
They want Al Horford shooting threes. And you better, listen, if you're working at it, that is the one skill that you can get better at in the NBA. The one skill that I've seen guys that were like shitty shooters. Darrell Wright is a great example. Darrell Wright years ago was an awful shooter when I remember seeing him in high school.
Grant Williams
was not a good shooter. And again, but like you work on it enough and they're uncontested, you should be able to make, high 30s and maybe 40.
And I feel like that's how Ainge always looked at the draft to me. So many of the guys he picked, Jalen Brown, Terry Rozier, these were athletic guys, great molds, great athleticism ability, and all that was missing was the three. And you project for that to improve, and pretty much all these guys they've drafted, going back to his days here, improved in that area. So this is going to be an interesting one. I want to start at the top, but we'll get right to the Celtics for everyone hanging out here who's interested in guys they could potentially grab here. You get to 35 and you're not banking on much at that point, but it is still a borderline first round pick. They would have been picking at 29 anyway, even if they had their first round pick. So you're not that much further back at 35. And I've picked out a handful of names that intrigue me. If you're them, obviously you can go in three different directions here. You can draft a prospect who has great upside. You can draft a guy that maybe you need right now. I'd say big man's probably that spot where you need a little bit of support right now. And if you can find someone who's capable at that spot, they can maybe step in and give you something immediately, or you can just stash another guy like they've done recent history here. So if you had to prioritize one thing for them at 35, what would it be?
Shooting, period.
Shooting.
I want an elite shooter. I just think they have a collection of like good shooters, but no elite shooters. Don't try to tell me Al Horford's some elite shooter.
No, the playoffs were bad for him.
Right, and he's only going to play. His minutes are going to be diminished, probably starting next year. They better be. So give me a guy on that team that's an elite shooter. Elite. Like I'm talking like where the ball leaves their hand and you're like, hey, I'm surprised if it's not going in. You don't have one.
Not
right?
even Hauser?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yes. I guess Hauser is probably the closest thing to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he was great this year. He just couldn't get in the game in the playoffs.
Correct. He couldn't play him because he couldn't guard.
Yeah.
Right? Like he just – and he was good defensively in the regular season, but you can get exposed, obviously, defensively in the playoffs when they attack you. I would love to see him – whoever they draft, whoever they add, just add like really good shooters because of the way you're playing, right? The way Brad played, the way Joe is playing now is all built around the three. So if you're going to build around that system, you better bring in elite level. Like you better have one. I mean, I'd rather have more than one. I mean, I think Tatum, again, if Jason Tatum is so much doesn't fall on Tatum, his percentages are much better. Let's face it. Like he could probably be an elite level shooter if his shots were what other guys are getting, but they're not, right? I mean, he's taking contested threes every time he shoots the ball for the most part. So his numbers are going to be lower than some of these other guys that are taking, threes without anybody within 5 feet of them. But like Jalen Brown is an average shooter. And I know he shot it well early on in his career, but I feel like Jalen Brown is a 35% three-point shooter. That's what he is, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. I think for his career, that's probably around where he is. And it's gotten worse in recent seasons, which confuses me.
Yeah, me too. But again, part of it is you prove you can make them.
It's actually 36 for his career, but a lot of that was early.
Right. The last few years, it's been, 33 this past year? 33,
yeah,
34?
35 the year before that.
Right. I think that's what he is. I think he's somewhere between like 34, 35% three-point shooter. That doesn't surprise me. That's what.
And then your guards aren't great shooters at all, besides from Brogdon, who seems like he might be gone here.
And I like Brogdon. Like, you know what? I hate to see Brogdon leave.
I do too. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Money move? Like, if they dump him for money reasons, I'm just like, what are you doing?
I like Malcolm. I honestly think if Malcolm was healthy, you're probably looking at getting the finals.
Right.
I think there's a good shot. If Malcolm was really healthy, you're talking about maybe getting the finals.
In contrast, he was so hurt that he killed you out there when he was playing.
That's the thing. You had one end of the spectrum to the other. Yeah. Every time you put him out there, couldn't make a shot, wasn't really great. Defensively, he's always been really good for the most part because he's so smart. This year, he wasn't as good as he normally was. Marcus Smart clearly wasn't as good defensively as he was even a year ago.
Yeah.
I would. And maybe I'm crazy here. The first thing I would think of doing, I know this wasn't the why we did this pod, but it would probably be to look for Marcus Smart and see what I could get for him. I just think it's run its course with him. As much as anything, I think it's run its course, but I don't know how many takers there are going to be at 3 years and $60 million. I think there'll be one because there are going to be teams that really value the toughness, the intensity, still the fact that he can guard, and he's gotten better as a point guard. You can argue what you want, like he's erratic and inconsistent, but he's gotten way better as a point guard. He just doesn't give too many guys other than Rob easy baskets, right? Like the best thing he does is that he throws the only lob to Rob. Nobody else throws it to him, really.
Yeah, he has a feel for the game that I like generally. His passing skill in a vacuum, I think, is great. He even shot the ball well from three in the playoffs, surprisingly, 36. I always liked him. He's never been a guy I look at and say is a problem here. I think there's always more good than bad, despite those bads being glaring and fans jump all over him when he does have those bad games. And the contract's really good. I mean, he's signed through 2026 for like 18 a year.
Well, it's
Which,
good. It's good, but it's hard to move like to a Washington because you got 3 years left. If he had
right.
2 years left, I think Washington might have been interested in taking him in a deal. But 3 years left is hard.
So here is the one thing I'll say that this team has a problem with here. Like, you're kicking around, bringing in some guys. You bring in Brogdon, and it's like, well, Smart can't move to the bench. Smart can't sit in
Right.
the fourth quarter.
Right.
That thing with this team needs to change. Like, there's got to be, and Joe caught a lot of flack this year, but with stuff like that, he didn't have a ton of flexibility to sit guys down, to alter his lineups, to try different
He's
things. I
scared,
mean, he didn't
Bobby.
experiment much this year.
But he's a rookie head coach, and the one guy you're scared of because he was an Ime guy is Marcus Smart, the one vocal guy, right? The one guy you probably, well, other than Tatum, you don't want to piss off, obviously. And Tatum was behind Mazzulla. We knew that. But Marcus was not. He was not. He wanted Ime. So I think he had to kind of handle Marcus with kid gloves a lot of times. And again, like, you could say what you want about Marcus, benching him in the playoffs. Well, you couldn't bench him at the end because Brogdon was hurt.
Right. Yeah, and that's what killed you there. So I don't know what you could get from him. The Toronto guys intrigue me if they're going to be sold here, OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. But what do they want Smart in that case
They
for
don't.
if they're
They don't.
rebuilding?
Right.
So,
if you're Toronto, you're going to rebuild probably. If you're going to trade those guys because they're good young players. Like, why would you trade? OG's like come a long way, man. He couldn't shoot at all when I first saw him. And elite defender.
Oh, he's so great defensively. You just see him disrupting stuff out there left and right.
But I want shooters. Again, if you're bringing somebody in, unless you're going to change your system, I don't know if I want OG Anunoby. I think I want a shooter. I would love to see him. They can't. They're not going to be able to move up. But I would love to see him move up and get like Grady Dick. He's going to go top 10-ish in the draft. Jordan Hawkins. Those are the two best shooters, pure shooters in this draft. Like, man, give me one of those dudes to play with Tatum and even Jalen Brown, because they'll just help the spacing. Like, Grant Williams can shoot 42% another year from three, but like, they're still not respecting Grant to whereas they got to go and press up on him. They'll close out on him at the last minute, but they're not. Like Grady Dick, you put him on the court, trust me, they're not leaving him.
Right. I'm frustrated with where the Grant thing's gone, though, and I see the reports they're looking to sign and trade him. I felt like all year they've been phasing him out, not only signing Gallinari, but benching him for the stretches that they did, and now, they had that report in the Globe yesterday that he's probably going to be back. If they get to a certain number here, I just don't think cap-wise they can make it work, and that was a guy who was a great outlet for Tatum a year ago. He's a guy who's steadily been shooting 40% from three over the last 2 years. And even in the playoffs, when they put him in, he was knocking down shots left and right. Good defender, can defend pretty much every position. They should have got something done with him a year ago, when they had that window too.
What was the number a year ago about? Do you remember?
I think it might have been like
12. Was it 12 a year?
12 over 4 or something like that was probably the max they're looking to do. And I think that's probably the max that they can do now. And, to their credit, I guess the numbers probably come down from what he was looking for, like 20. They were floating at one point earlier this year. He's not going to get that. If he gets 15, they probably can't match that. And that's not going to be too hard to get.
Yeah, now it's like, all right, again, if you're Brad, you just got to figure out, honestly, more than anything, which guy – not even the money so much, because they're all similar money, right? And you're not moving Derek White because he's your best defender now.
Right.
He's your best defender, and he shows.
You got to start thinking about extending him. He's become that good.
I friggin' love Derek, and I loved him when they got him. He took a while to get acclimated, because he's too nice a guy. He's like too nice a guy. You know this. You've been around him probably more than I have, but I've talked to so many people, and even when I see him after games, it's like – literally, it's like Derek White's known me his whole life. The way, like, he's always smiling, like the nicest guy ever. And again, it just took him a while to get used to the fact of like, all right, like you know what? I'm not going to worry about stepping on toes. These guys want me to score. They want me to be assertive. Finally, and again, he couldn't make a shot a year ago in the playoffs. He was
Right.
atrocious.
Best thing Joe ever did though is, Rob goes down. We're
Yeah,
not starting Grant. We're not starting
yeah,
this guy, that guy. We're starting White.
yeah. Go small. Go small. Again, the other one, so hard. Would you move on from Rob if you could get another big that you knew was just going to be available? Like I would. I'm at the point where now, like, I love Rob, but like there's also limitations in what Rob gives you offensively. We know they don't utilize him,
He plays
or he just
13
can't.
minutes some nights.
Yeah,
It's like,
or
what?
he can't. And then it's like, again, like the availability is such an issue for me, where I'd rather take a guy that's got less talent, but is going to be there all year, especially with Al now getting older. Like Al cannot play 28 minutes, every night. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's something you got to look at, when you're drafting at 35. Can you get, because again, the one thing is those bigs now are falling. Like a guy like Trace Jackson Davis is a name at 35 that will be on the board probably.
So
And
that's my favorite name at 35.
I love him. My daughter went to Indiana, so I watched him every game this year. And
20
Trace,
and 10 last year, right?
he was the second best player in college basketball. And here's the thing. Most of these bigs, and Trace played 4 years in college, the big knock on him coming out of high school and even early in college was he didn't play hard. Didn't play hard and can't shoot. Okay? Well, last year he played hard as shit. And yeah, he didn't shoot still. Mike Woodson still didn't let him shoot. But he is a super athletic, undersized 5-man. Like super athletic. And can beat guys off the bounce. And the biggest thing that I saw in him last year, besides the fact that he played hard as shit consistently, was his passing. His passing was tremendous last year. All of a sudden, and he told me one of the reasons why he got hurt early on in the season with a back injury, and he said, I got to play a little bit different now. I can't rely on my athleticism as much because, his back was bothering him. So he played differently, and he's got these huge hands that he literally can just, one hand, take the ball and survey the court. And he was their best passer. He averaged probably 4.5 assists a game last year. So Trace, to me, would be terrific at 35 if you can get him, because again, it allows you, maybe he blocks shots, he rebounds, he can run, man. Now he doesn't block like Rob does, but again, if you say he can play 20, 25 minutes every night and you can fill it, undersized, you can really run with him. You can really run. I don't know. I mean, again, I think you got to figure out some other option that allows you to be able to move Robert Williams. You need something else behind him so that you can move him.
Right. And Muscala didn't work. That wasn't a great move looking back on it.
Not good enough. No, not good.
Yeah.
You need somebody else. You probably need, maybe, they're talking Isaiah Stewart, who I love, but he's not a rim protector. That's the problem with Isaiah Stewart. Like,
no, he's more of a grinder in there. Yeah, he's just got to out physical guys. He's not going to block a ton of shots.
Nope.
He's only 21, 22, I think.
Love him. I love Isaiah Stewart as a backup big man playing 20 minutes. Like if you told me, hey, you could have Isaiah Stewart and Trace Jackson Davis, it's not great, but it's serviceable enough if you're going to go cheap there and then spend your money elsewhere.
Yeah, and James Edwards has said Detroit's probably not moving him. If you could do something like Brogdon for Stewart, I'd be interested in that. Detroit needs some offense. Maybe Brogdon can go and.
I don't love it. I don't love giving up Brogdon for Isaiah Stewart. I don't. It's
strength for strength, though.
Brogdon, here's the thing with Brogdon. Like, he moves the ball. He and Derek White, they move the ball. They make good decisions. Again, like I've said, it's like having two adults in the room now. Like you added two adults to this team in the last year and a half that I think have helped in an area in which you need help. Let's face it, we know that. Like Jalen Brown doesn't move the ball, right? Doesn't move the ball. Marcus doesn't, sometimes he moves the ball, sometimes he doesn't. But at the point guard position, he's not an elite ball mover by any means. Like Tatum's your best kind of passer right now. He's kind of been your best actual passer of making life easy for other guys if you watch that team, right? So, like, I don't know. I feel like Brogdon, and you're giving up on him after a year. I don't know. I'd like to see him another year in this system with Derek White, with, if you're keeping Jalen, which you obviously are now, Tatum, Jalen, and then adding one other piece maybe in place of Smart, seeing what that looks like.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to anything at this point. I do think they'll consider all the above up to Tatum at this point. I think that's where they're at. We'll see if the deal gets done with Jalen. I don't think there's a ton out there that intrigues you if you're them moving
No,
him.
there isn't. There isn't now. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, you're not getting Lillard. So what else? I look down the list of like guys I would be interested in trading Jalen Brown for. And I'm like, well, first of all, if you're going to do it, you probably have to do it with a team that knows they're going to be able to resign Jalen.
Like in Atlanta.
Atlanta is the one that you look at and you're like, all right, he's from there. He would want to be the guy there. That would be like the perfect scenario for him. All right, like I said a couple of years ago, I was really intrigued with remember the rumor was DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, and a couple of firsts. And I got crucified when I said, like, yeah, I would think long and hard about that one because Huerter shoots the shit out of it. Hunter's a really good defender who I think can average 17 a game. He may not average 24 a game like Jalen, but he can average 17 a game. And then you throw in a couple firsts in there that are mid first round picks. I might have done it at that point. Now it's like, all right, Hunter, Onyeka Kongwu. I love Onyeka. I love him. I think he's terrific.
Yeah.
But again, are you getting enough value for Jalen Brown if you're doing that plus a couple first round picks?
You need to get Murray too.
Yeah,
he's about to probably make $30 million a year.
I'm not even sure I want Murray for that number. I'm not even sure I want him. I love Hunter. I really, really like DeAndre Hunter a lot, and I think without Trae Young, he can give you a lot more. Like, listen, all these guys in Atlanta can give you more, but they're all hamstrung because they're playing with Trae Young. Let's be honest.
I love their roster. You look at them and you're like, how are they a 9 seed or whatever they were, 8 seed? They have so much talent.
Trae Young, because you don't trust Trae Young, because it's all about Trae Young and dribble, and then he'll get his assist numbers, but generally it's everybody standing around watching, and he'll throw these crazy. And again, he's talented as hell. He's got to be your number 2 guy, not your number 1.
Absolutely. And I do want to get to some other prospects here. Of course, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com. It's baseball season now. You can bet on the draft. You can bet on some NBA futures. You can look at some NFL stuff before that season gets rolling. But baseball, night in, night out, what we're watching right now, what we're leaning on to get us through the summer. It has been a great Red Sox season, but just swept the Yankees, just beat Minnesota last night. So they're on a little bit of a win streak now.
I gave up on him, Bobby. I'm done. I'm out on the Red Sox.
I'm hanging in there. You need something. I'm not a golf guy.
I'm not watching, hard,
right? I'm not watching tennis or anything like that.
I don't know, Bobby.
The basketball tournament comes around. That kind of gives me a little something. Syracuse. I think Tyus Battle's playing in it this year.
You know what you can do, Bobby? Get outside. The weather's good here. Get outside. Get in shape. I'm taking up pickleball now, so that's my big thing. It's an old man sport.
Yeah, they got that at the gym now. They knocked down a basketball court for it, which I'm up there playing basketball, and
that upsets you, doesn't it?
That upset me, yeah. So head over to FanDuel.com/Boston. Get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you head over there. Like I said, baseball night in, night out. They're always giving you some kind of offer to boost your odds or bonus bets or whatever it might be. But this is the big one. Sign up, Massachusetts, $1,000. No sweat first bet, going to come back as site credit if you lose. So if you're feeling great about something, go and lay that down. FanDuel.com/Boston, our official sports wagering partner here at CLNS Media. There's some other names I want to float by you here for 35 that I jotted down here. You were talking shooting. There's 2 guys I'm interested in from a shooting perspective, especially if Grant's out the window. Really 3 guys. Marcus Sasser from Houston, Kobe Brown from Missouri, or Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine? Which of those names intrigues you the most?
I like Sasser. He's just small. He's 6'2", not a great athlete. I saw somebody compare him to like a Gabe Vincent type, but he's tough. He can guard. I just don't know if you want another small guard. Like, I'd rather not. Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine, a guy that's just kind of under the radar a little bit. Pepperdine was terrible, but Lewis is one of those guys that intrigues a lot of NBA guys because of his upside. Got the length, got the skill. And then Kobe Brown was awesome in Missouri this year. Awesome.
And his coach just got hired by the Celtics, Phil Pressey.
Oh, I didn't know that. Phil got hired?
Yeah, he's coming in as an assistant.
Phil's my guy. That's a great hire. That's a terrific, terrific hire. Phil Pressey is awesome. Obviously, son of Paul Pressey, one of the best defenders years ago before you were alive. But also Phil grew up kind of around here a little bit. He went to prep school around here. I've known Phil since he was a kid. That's a great, great hire. I gotta text him. Congrats.
And he was a solid Celtic for a couple of years there under Brad Stevens.
Yeah, Phil's awesome. Awesome. He'll do a good job with them. Listen, the good thing now for Joe is at least he's got a staff that I think is his. He can call them his. And I don't know if they really are his because I'm not sure he picked them. I think certainly he had some say in it, but I'm sure Brad and Charles Lee, I don't know how much Joe Mazzulla knew Charles Lee, but at least he's got all off season now to kind of develop that rapport. Right. Where last year it was just so hard for him to come in and, all those guys are probably looking at him like, come on, man. Like, how did he get this job? He was in the second row. How did he get it?
To some degree. I mean, I remember talking to Ben Sullivan during the year, and these guys, they were – they put on a good fit. I think Damon really helped them out. Like, they all tried their best to support him, but there was that, like, what happened with Ime here? They're all essentially going down to join Ime's staff. So that says a lot. Ben Sullivan's heading down there. Few of the deeper assistants. I think Aaron Miles might be. I'm not sure. I haven't heard officially yet.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Aaron, but
wouldn't be surprising. Like, those are Ime's guys. About half of them are in the NBA because of Ime.
I just think it's going to be interesting this year because, again, now Joe's got a year under his belt. He's got a different staff.
I don't mind them giving Joe another chance. How can you blame him for last year? I thought he did a great job in spite of everything.
He did. I mean, again, and people expected him to, be able to outcoach or evenly coach Eric Spoelstra. I mean, come on, it's not fair. It's not fair to like Eric Spoelstra when he was a rookie head coach wasn't very good, and he's turned into this. It takes time. I don't know if Joe Mazzulla is going to be Eric Spoelstra, but I mean, you got to give him one more year to see and give him guys around him and give him a full off season to implement more of his system. Like, he had to, everything he did, and he's 34, so it was hard for him because, again, you have this group that really didn't want Ime gone. That was the hard part for him. It's like certain guys, I don't think they were anti-Joe necessarily, but they were pissed off that the Celtics didn't stick with Ime. So they probably, I don't know if they took it out on Joe, but they probably didn't give Joe quite as much of a chance early as they could have or should have. But listen,
things largely went well this year, so there really wasn't many moments. Yeah, they had some bad losses during the regular season, but you're the second seed, you're winning most nights.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton to complain about during the regular season, but once the playoffs hit and then you go down 3-2 to Philly, I think different guys were stepping up, trying to, sit in that coaching chair, trying to instill certain things. Rob starting late in that Philadelphia series didn't seem like a Joe move to me. I think a lot of the players really pushed for that. And then, right into the Miami series.
He had to make a change. I think he just knew sometimes you got to try something different and push a different button. And I'm sure, maybe it wasn't just him, but I think even he realized, and the other thing I'll say for anybody watching here is I know people have taken the shots at Joe Mazzulla as kind of like his personality and coming across as arrogant and whatnot. And I'll defend Joe on this because I've seen a different side of Joe. I've known Joe since he was young. He was in a tough spot in a way too, because, think about it. You're 34. You get the job as the interim head coach. If you get up there and you're acting like a clown and having fun and being too loose, what are people going to say? Well, like, he's a kid. Like, he can't do that. He's 34. Like, he looks immature. So I think on one end, Joe went to an extreme, and you were around him more than I was in the press conference settings. But I think he went to the other extreme and was just like, hey, you know what? This is how I'm going to play it. I got to get the job, first of all. This is my dream job. I can't screw up with the media. I got enough pressure on me on the court. I'm not screwing this up with something I say. I'm going to be smarter than that. So he didn't give you guys anything really all year, right? He didn't.
Early on, especially. But he was defensive. He fought back. He asserted himself in those situations. Yep. He made it his own in his own way, which impressed me. And, very respectful on the side. Like, good dude, great guy to talk to.
Just not going to give you like what Ime did. He's not going to give you, and even like Brad. All right, Brad, he wouldn't give you that much of, like, you probably look down after a press conference with Brad and you're like, geez, man, he didn't really say anything. But he's still like the nicest dude ever who will talk forever. He's too smart. He's too smart to give you anything of any bulletin board material or anything that's controversial in any way. Joe's just shorter than him. Joe was very, very short with his answers, which can come across as a little arrogant. But trust me when I say, Joe's a good guy who I think in year 2 hopefully will become a little bit more comfortable in his own skin and kind of how he's dealing with the media, and hopefully he'll loosen up a little bit.
Right. Give us something.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't give us anything more often than not. I mean, even there was a day Brad talked, and I think Jalen had just broken his face when he collided with Tatum, and it's like, oh, Joe, how's Jalen doing? Is he getting surgery? I don't know. I don't know. And then Brad comes in 5 minutes later. Oh, Brad, how's Jalen doing? Oh, he doesn't need surgery. He's getting a mask. He'll be back to practice later this week. It's like, come on. Does Brad want to do these things?
Right, because then the problem is people don't necessarily believe what you're going to say in the future. Right. You lose trust. Not that maybe he cares, but I'll say this, having gone through this with enough coaches, whether it's college or NBA, like, the media can make or break you. Like, if it's close, at some point this year, if Joe goes through his struggles, the media can either pile on or they can defend you. And obviously, you'd rather have them defending you. Because,
I mean, they go down 3-0 to Miami. The whole front page of the Globe was Joe's not ready. Yeah. Move on from Joe, blah, 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 blah. He didn't buy himself.
That would have been the case with Doc Rivers or somebody like that? Hell no, because everybody here loved Doc. Why? Because Doc was good to him, media-wise. Doc would, he'd spend time with you. He'd smile. Like, same thing with me. I love Doc. Why? Because every time I see Doc wants to talk to me.
Yeah. And, he can improve in that too. That's something that I think he's just going to get better at.
I say this all the time. We're human. And if you give us a lot, we're more apt to give a coach more leeway. That's all. That's the reality. Whether people want to hear it or not, that's the truth. That's the absolute truth. Is, an asshole. And again, I'm not saying Joe's an asshole, but an asshole coach who's on the fringe. Most media people are going to be like, screw it, and pile on. And then the public perception gets to a point where, ownership or an athletic director or whatever is like, you know what? I'm not keeping this dude. The media is killing him. Fans are killing him. So again, I would say this: Joe Mazzulla is actually a good dude who's got a really good personality. I've seen it. I talked to a West Virginia player yesterday, and Mazzulla and Mike Yancey, the GM for the Cavs, 2 former West Virginia guys, got on a Zoom call with all the players yesterday, because people don't know West Virginia's got an opening right now. They're deciding who their next coach is going to be after Bob Huggins was forced to resign. And those guys got in a call with the players, and the players said, I talked to one player. I'm like, how was Joe on the call on the Zoom? He was like, oh, he was hilarious. And it didn't surprise me, but I was like, man, I can't wait to tell Boston media that Joe Mazzulla was hilarious because they won't believe it. But again, Joe's got that in him. He's got it in him. I think he'll be more comfortable in year 2.
He does. He tried a point. I love when he said, I asked him, Jalen threw off the mask, I think, in game 4 against Atlanta. And I said, oh, what did you see from Jalen when he took off the mask? And he goes, his face. And that's the kind of stuff he'd try in the pressers. And we'd be sitting there, not too many people laughing, but he tried a few things. I'm excited to see him try again next year.
Yep. Me too.
There were frustrating moments at times. There were things I didn't like, benching Grant, the threes, even just the lack of attention to defense at times. I'd be asking him all year about the defense, and then that's what I think ended up killing them, especially in the players' eyes late in the year. So we'll see where that goes. What else intrigues you about this draft? There's obviously a lot of stuff going on at the top too. I'm surprised Scoot Henderson wasn't Charlotte's guy for the longest time. They were seemingly zeroed in on Brandon Miller. And now it seems a little bit more even. It kind of reminds me of last year when Orlando was saying, oh, we're Jabari Smith. Then at the last second, it's Paolo Banchero. And it seemed like it was that way the whole time. I feel like that's how it's going to go at number 2 with Scoot Henderson, who everyone talked about as that second guy in this draft for a while, like the great consolation prize to not getting Victor. So I'd be surprised if Charlotte goes Miller over him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think everybody thinks Scoot's upside's higher. Scoot can't shoot right now. Brandon Miller shot the hell out of it for like 2/3 of the season last year and then struggled at the end. But he's got that Jason Tatum type game, and everybody wants that right now. Right? As much as like point guard is important, the versatile forward has almost become more important now with watching some of these guys like Tatum. Because you can give them the ball and they can make a play. Like with Scoot, he can make people better. He's like in that Derrick Rose kind of mold a little bit of a point guard. But if he can't shoot, and again, I don't know, he hasn't gotten much better shooting. And same thing with the Thompson twins. Like those dudes, it scares me with them because all I hear about is how hard they work, how much they're in the gym all the time. And they've been down at overtime elite for two years. And they really haven't got better shooting the ball. So that scares the shit out of me because all they've had is time on their hands to get in the gym. Overtime elite, I don't know if they go to class. I mean, supposedly, but who knows, right? Not a whole.
There's a class there?
Supposedly. So like these guys like Scoot, the Thompson twins, like if you had told me this 10 years ago, I'm like, all right, not a big deal. But now, again, if you can't shoot, and I go back to what I said, at the beginning of the pod, which is shooting is the one skill that NBA guys will say with reps, you can get better. Well, the Thompson have had reps. They've had reps. They've had 2 years at overtime elite. Scoot Henderson has had 2 years with G League Ignite. So it's not like they haven't had the time, and none of those guys have gotten significantly better shooting the ball from 3. So that scares the hell out of me, where Brandon Miller, again, I see a lot of Tatum in his game in terms of, again, like their body builds, their ability to make plays off the bounce. Tatum's better, and I always felt like he was better as a playmaker too. But Brandon Miller can pass, which we didn't see a ton of at Alabama. Some. So I would go Brandon Miller if I was Charlotte, I guess, because of that and because I think they have more of a need for that position, that type of player, than putting Scoot with LaMelo. And you're going to – one of those guys, they both need the ball in their hands. That's the problem with LaMelo and Scoot. And LaMelo is like Trae Young in a lot of ways, right? Dribble, 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 incredible pass. What's Scoot going to do? What are you going to do? Have him stand there? He can't make a shot.
Yeah, you'd have to invert that because LaMelo's a good shooter. He's a guy who put up a ton of threes.
The form isn't good, but it's gone in.
Yeah. Who could surprise people the most out of this draft? Obviously, a name I keep hearing that could be better than his projected position is Cam Whitmore.
Yeah.
Anthony
He might
Black
go
seems,
4. He might go 4.
yeah. And Anthony Black's the other one I hear who seems to be rising quickly among the hype train here late in the game. So who do you think would surprise people most in terms of
I
how they
think
actually play
Whitmore.
it?
I think Whitmore's got a shot to be really good. Anthony
Yeah.
Black, kind of a non-shooter, long point guard. Needs to get stronger, but if he shoots it well, he's got a chance. Like I like Casey Wallace a lot. Those Kentucky point guards, the combo guards, have been pretty good, right? I mean,
Every
Shea,
year they hit.
yes, Shea,
Tyrese Maxey, quickly.
Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had a lot of them. And Casey, of all those guys, I will say this: Casey Wallace is the toughest dude of all of them. He's the toughest. Now, again, is he the shooter scorer that Jamal Murray is? No, absolutely not. But he's a two-way point guard who is tough, who made some shots last year, not a great shooter, but an elite defender who can run a team. So I like him a lot. And then you can buy low on a couple guards, wing guards that can really score it. All right. So there's two of them. Nick Smith, I talked about Lively and how his stock fell this past year. Nick Smith came in Arkansas as maybe the number one freshman in the country, along with Lively, and 6'5", more of a wing scorer, and he was hurt all year. Knee injury, wasn't healthy, left for a while to rehab in L.A. Arkansas didn't think he was going to come back. Comes back at the end of the year, which was impressive because he could have just said, I'm done. I'm going to protect my draft stock. And he didn't. He came back. He wasn't great, but he's 6'5", and he can score it from all three levels. Just the explosiveness wasn't there that I saw 2 years ago because of the knee injury, I think. So he's going to go like 15 to 20, and I think there's great value there. The other one is Keontae George, freshman at Baylor. Similar type player. 6'4", three-level scorer, not a great perimeter shooter, but like good enough, really good mid-range. Both those guys have good mid-range. Neither one was great defensively. Those are two guys that are going to go in that 15 to 20 range, I think, that, again, I don't know if the Celtics can get there, would want to get there, what it would take to get there. But those are guys that I think can definitely help you. And if you hit it right, those are guys that could be like, number 3 guys on your team down the road, potentially. They're not going to be superstars, I don't think, but they could be, like top 50 NBA players if you hit it right with them.
There's one guy whose stock has seemingly fallen more than anybody's. I mean, I see this
I know
guy.
where you're going. I know where you're going.
I see this guy like second round,
Yep.
late second round, maybe. The workouts haven't been good. The interviews haven't been good from what I've seen. But first, I do want to tell people, this is a guy the Celtics could get, by the way, potentially here if they want him. I feel like they went a similar route last year with J.D. Davison at that spot.
Yeah. But
first,
JD can't shoot. JD can't shoot. This kid can shoot.
Yes. So first, though, factor meals. It's summer. You don't want to be by the stove. You don't want to be in the grocery store. You don't want to be wasting your time. You want to be outside. Well, factor meals let you skip all of that and just put their fresh, never frozen meals ready to go. Heat up in 2 minutes and you're back outside soaking up the summer. Calorie conscious options this summer. They're delicious, dietitian approved meals ready with less than 550 calories per serving. An extra boost of energy, delicious flavor pack options. You can pick from a bunch of stuff here. The shakes look intriguing to me here. Got the bars, you get all sorts of different meals. I'm a big salmon guy, so go to factormeals.com/garden50 and use the code garden50. Get 50% off your first box. That's code garden50 at factormeals.com. Garden50, 50% off your first box. All right, I don't know if I guessed the name you're thinking of, Jeff, but G.G. Jackson.
No, that wasn't it. Amani Bates was my name. Amani Bates.
I'm not even thinking about him anymore. I mean, it's crazy how far he's fallen, but you're right. That is the guy who's fallen most over a number of years here. Let's roll with him.
We can go GG first.
All right.
I like GG. Like, he reclassed. He was
Yeah,
supposed
because
to
he's
be
in the
higher.
30s to me, and Amani Bates, I'm seeing it like late 50s.
Yeah, Amani probably does go, in the mid first, second round. GG could sneak in late first round.
Yeah.
Big, versatile forward. I remember seeing him last summer at the Peach Jam, and again, not a great shooter, and at South Carolina, just didn't have anything around him. I mean, they had a terrible group around him of talent, so he had to do way too much. Especially these kids you reclassify, almost always it doesn't really work out. It
Yeah.
hurts more than
Didn't
ever.
Bagley do that? Marvin Bagley? I want to say. Maybe I'm thinking of
But I
someone
think
else.
he was already. Yeah, I don't know if it was Marvin. Marvin was fine in college. I mean, he was way better in college,
He was in
producing
the NBA,
wise.
yeah.
Marvin's problem was his dad. Um, GG is talented, and he's big and strong and can pass it. Like, he just needs good players around him, and he needs time. Not a great shooter though. Amani, for those who don't know, was a 15-year-old on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was going to be the next KD. Blah 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 blah. Dad took him out of school, made his own school for him. Went to Memphis for a year, reclassified. Went to Memphis. Was with Jalen Duren, and there was like two factions of the team, older guys, younger guys, didn't work out. Transferred back home, Eastern Michigan this past year, put up numbers. Inefficient, high volume guy, 6'9". But man, if you ever put him, and my only take on this is, if you put him around like Jason Tatum, listen, we can say what we want about the Celtics, but the one thing you can't say is that they don't have high character people from top to bottom in that organization, right? Like, you want more shit to them. Like, Marcus has got some shit to him. But like, other than that, they're almost like too nice in a way, right? Tatum, Brogdon, Derek White, Jalen Brown, like all of them, they're almost like too nice. So like, Amani kind of needs that in a way. He needs good people around him, almost hire somebody with him and see if you can get it. Because that dude can make shots. He can make contested shots. Now, he has some terrible decision-making with his shots, and he doesn't guard anybody right now. But the upside is there, that if you just said, hey, you know what? We're going to have a really good coach with him in the G League, and we're going to hire somebody to be with him 24/7. This is going to be our project, and see if we can get Amani back. Man, as a second unit scorer, he could be pretty good. Like, he could score. Bobby, the shots I've seen this kid make and create, like, he can do it. He can do it. He's had like the work, like, he just hasn't had the right people around him.
Yeah, and I don't see him going 35. I think he'll probably just keep floating and floating and floating later.
Yep.
And that's usually how it goes for the guys that have concerns like that. I mean,
Yep.
the one thing I'll say is it's nice to take a flyer on a guy like that here who could really become something. But when you have your stars already, you're probably looking for guys who are more complimentary at that spot. The last name,
but he can shoot. That's the
right?
one thing I would say is, again, if you're going to add a guy at 35, give me a guy who can make shots. Give me a guy who can take some pressure off. Like, you can go get another dude who can guard.
Yeah.
Like, you can get that type of player who can guard and can't shoot, honestly, in free agency. But get me a shooter. There just aren't many of them that can make shots. And Amani, again, he's not going to be a 40% three-point shooter, but he is going to be a guy that when he gets going, man, he gets going.
I'm going to throw one more name at you because I actually think this is probably the most likely guy to go with 35 to Boston. They've worked him out.
All right.
They've worked out Trace as well, which I like to see because that is my favorite guy at that spot. But they've worked out this guy too, be a popular name in the area. And I think among fans and people who have hyped up names at 35, this is probably the most popular. Andre Jackson.
He can't shoot. He
can't shoot.
Why? Like, to me, no, I do not want a non-shooter on this roster. I have no desire for that. Why? They're not going to guard him. Now, he can guard anybody. He's great defensively and a great secondary ball handler. But you've got enough secondary ball handlers, right? So, like, it's not like you're running stuff through Andre Jackson.
Right.
No, like, I don't like the fit at all.
the shot's so bad. I don't. You
Like
do
Jordan
want it.
Walsh. I don't want Jordan Walsh either.
Yeah.
Arkansas freshman, can't really shoot it. Again, unless you're giving me a 5-man who can't shoot like Trace,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'll take that. But to me, I'm looking at other guys. Julian Strother's a name that I could see at 35. He's 6'8", and he can shoot it. Now he's a little soft, but he could be like a guy that again. But again, I don't know how much more he gives you than like Sam Hauser. He's got higher upside, probably, but he's not going to do much different than like that's where like I don't know. I just feel 35. Trace fits. Trace adds something that they need on this team, especially with Horford getting older and Rob being who the hell knows if Rob's going to play. So like I don't know. I feel like, again, is Trace ever going to be a 35-minute a game big? Probably not, but he can give you 20, 25.
Yeah, the UCLA guy there too, Jamie Jacquez, probably not much of a three-point shooter
He's
at that
tough as
spot.
shit, though. God, he's good. He's just a winner. He's
Yeah,
just a winner. Like, you can put him in now, Bobby, and he'll do everything well, nothing elite. And he's all about winning. Like I don't mind
he
those
can really
guys.
pass.
I don't mind those guys.
He can really
All
pass.
right,
He
I
can
got to run. I got a
steal
West
guys.
Virginia call coming in.
All right, Jeff. Thanks for
Thanks,
joining
Bobby.
us. We'll see you on Stadium on Thursday.
Thanks, man.
All right, that's our show. We'll have some more of these names popping up. I'm going to dive deeper into some of them. Appreciate Jeff for being here. Of course, we'll give a shout out as well to Athletic Greens, athleticgreens.com/garden. Year's supply of vitamin D, 5 free travel packs with their great powder, 75 vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, probiotics, and more in your water each morning. That little energetic boost you need, the tropical flavor, and all the great reviews. You don't even have to take our word for it. These are just so well reviewed. Head over to athleticgreens.com/garden. Get the cool gear, the bottles, the container. You know the deal at this point. That's athleticgreens.com/garden. More draft stuff to come throughout the week. And any news that pops up, rumors, they're going to keep heating up, I'm sure, throughout today as well. Who knows? We could be back tonight with some breaking news on the Celtics front. Other than that, 35th overall pick coming up on Thursday. We'll have a live draft show and more as the offseason continues here on CLNS Media. Has been the Garden Report. I'm Bobby Manning. We'll talk to you